Good morning, all. Just before I start, am I audible and clear to everyone? If somebody can just let me know.
Yes, yes.
Yes,
We can hear you loud and clear.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Yes, thank you. Thank you all. So good morning and hello all. Myself Ekta Dubey, and on behalf of the Brinalytics team and our presenting partner, Jiffy.ai, we welcome you all and thank you for being part of our webinar, Rise of Intelligent Automation Series 2. Now, before we start the webinar, there are a few guidelines that I would like to highlight and make you people aware of. Requesting all the attendees to be on mute when the speakers are taking the session. There would be a Q&A after each session where the attendees can ask their questions, if any, to the respective speakers. The guidelines for the same are, you need to raise your hands and on your video. Introduce yourself, your name, company, and designations, and ask your questions to the concerned speaker. Thank you. So to start with, I would first like to introduce our presenting partner, Jiffy.ai. Founded with a mission to radically change how enterprises automate complex business processes, Jiffy.ai puts the power of real-time innovation in business users' hands. Jiffy.ai delivers an app-based cognitive automation platform that includes capabilities ranging from intelligent document processing and natural language processing to robust process automation and low-code, no-code development. Jiffy.ai are pioneers in the web-based automation solution and believes that automation accelerates innovation, empowering enterprises with AI-powered intelligent automation solution. Before we move on to our first keynote session, I would like to give a short intro about the webinar. Now, the recent information age is witnessing a rapid acceleration of intelligent automation, which is undoubtedly the next evolutionary step in business proficiency. Automation and artificial intelligence are transforming businesses and will contribute to economic growth via contributions to productivity. Now, with ever-changing technologies over the year, its operational efficiencies and work ethics are also transforming for the better. The webinar, Rise of Intelligent Automation, would focus on how various business functions can be accelerated through proper planning, modeling, and strategic deployment of intelligent automation solutions. How businesses are implementing automation at scale, what are the key insights and the best practices, and let's prepare better for future such unprecedented times if it comes. Now, to start with our first keynote session, I would like to welcome our keynote speaker, Mr. Vardul Mittal, Technology and Innovation Specialist. To speak about him, he is a leading technology and innovation specialist and a seasoned digital transformation and automation leader. He has 14 years of strong global business transformation experience in management consulting and with global capability centers with a remit to drive understanding and deliver business operations and technology strategy solutions globally. He has delivered engagements for Fortune 500 organizations such as IBM, Barclays, Coca-Cola India, Kotak Mahindra Bank, Royal Bank of Scotland, Standard Life Insurance, and Citibank. He has honored with many eminent awards in digital business transformation and AI. He will be sharing his insights on new era of innovation, intelligent automation, what is it made of, and what it brings. Over to you, Vardul, to start your session, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Ekta. Hi, everyone. Good morning to all of you. Hope I am well audible to all of you. I'm just switching on my camera.
Yeah, you need to on your camera.
Okay. Just give me a minute.
Yes.
There is some, yeah. Am I visible? I'm just trying to, the Zoom is actually taking some time. Meanwhile, I'll share my screen as well.
Yes.
So, am I busy with my screen?
Not yet, Varthal. We are waiting for your screen to present. It's starting. Just a moment.
I think it is. It will be up.
Yes, it will start in a moment.
Yes, it will be up. Yes. Let me know when you're good to see my screen so I can start.
Sure.
Is it better?
Not yet.
Give me a minute. Wait. Ekta, are you able to see the video? Yeah.
Yes, we can
I
see you,
see the video.
Varthal. Yes, we can see you.
Okay, perfect. And let me just do the full again for the share screen. Give me a minute.
You're also breaking in the middle a little bit, Varthal.
Come again.
You were breaking a little bit in middle, like because of the connectivity, I guess.
The connectivity, I am well connected, so I don't know why
Okay,
you are
it's
seeing
fine.
that way. But
Yeah, let's see. Now you can start if you can.
give me a minute. Just can you see? Can you see the screen now? Ekta, can you please confirm?
Yes, yes, you can start.
Okay. Hey, hi. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for your patience. So, to start this session today, where I have been invited by Jiffy.ai and with Brain Analytics, I'll begin the session with the entire note that how we are seeing the change in the era of innovation when we talk about intelligent automation or hyper automation in today's world. How, what are the key ingredients it is made up of, and how to further our RPA or auto journey so we can do it. So, in a slide, bit of a background, we have seen that because of this last 6 months of pandemic, we have seen shift in the technology spend across industries, and we have seen how there have been variations due to COVID-19. Now we see that there are few industries which have been affected positively and few have been affected negatively. We see that healthcare, technology, foods and beverages, they have been on the rise, but there have been non-essential services or products where we have seen a decline, a massive decline because of COVID-19. Now, when we prepare ourselves for this new normal by driving digital transformation or hyper automation or intelligent automation at scale, we generally have to look at a combination of automation and advanced analytics. And there is approach which I'll say a five-step approach that we have to consider into. First is how we have to focus on businesses where we can combat more on cost pressure and and increase our revenue in a multiple manner. So that's a huge challenge every business, every function facing right now. Second is look at the transformation-led approach with the help of complete integrated process automation, which we for for hypermile or again look at how we can fast track the transforming more system, thereby getting the automation timeline. So that is another thing. Just look at the
Say your voice is breaking. Can you
Yes.
please, can you please switch off the camera?
Yes, Vartul, your voice is actually breaking, so you can switch off your camera and we can see the screen, and that's fine.
Is it better? Confirm.
Still a little breaking, but if you can just start the flow, then we will understand.
Later.
No, we are still breaking, Vartul, actually. You can also try joining by phone. People are suggesting that, so I think that would work, if that's possible.
Join through. Give me a minute.
Yes, please take your time. No worries. Take your time.
Yes, please take your time.
Okay. So better now.
Yeah, you can start, then we can let you know. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll start again. Just give me a minute. Ekta, my voice is audible well now?
Yes, yes, much better, much better. Yeah, you can start.
Yes, much better, much better.
Thank you. Okay. So yeah, so when I was talking about the combination of automation and analytics, which has to be taken into account, we focus on we focus on improving the entire journey towards our digital transformation adoption by following key steps. First is we focus on business value, how to combat the cost pressure, and we emerge as a revenue multiplication side. Second is we look at the transformation-led approach with the help of integrated process automation. Third, we look at the fast track transformation because now in the current times when we do entirely remote assessments of our processes, and then we move towards the overall automation timeline. And fourth is we'll look at how we can scale our transformation agenda, our capabilities with the help of technology by focusing on end-to-end use cases rather than deploying point solutions. And then the last stage is how we will manage the change in the entire industry expectations and how the demand types and the buying behavior of digital transformation leaders or CEOs or CIOs is changing in the current era. Now, over here, I suggest a mix of RPA, AI, and analytics in terms of building a digital defensibility for organizations and how we will use it to achieve a digital at scale with complete resilient and speedy recovery from COVID-19 crisis. Now, if you look at the bottom of my screen, I have mentioned the technologies and the techniques. So in technologies, we have a combination of RPA, smart workflows, OCR, machine learning, NLP, smart analytics. Uh, they all are the essential ingredients to run this. And with a combination of techniques from design thinking, process mining, agile and DevOps, role level assessments, we finally end up achieving the optimal value. Now, having said this, let's go back and look at the another endorsement from Gartner, where Gartner has been mentioning that hyper automation is the #1 technology trend for 2020. And how we first clarify the agenda about hyper automation, because most of the people get confused, and there's a multiple definitions and understandings of multiple different leaders on hyper automation. But from Gartner's standpoint, where they clarify it, and I also find myself in sync with them, that hyper automation refers to an approach in which companies functions rapidly identify and automate as many business processes as possible with the use of combination of technologies and not by a single point solution. Now, having said this, if you look at my screen, when we talk about hyper automation, it has been clarified that it covers process mining, RPA, native integrations, advanced analytics, long-running workflows, machine learning, and coupled with the AI skills, which help us stitch all these technologies together using APIs, using computer vision, using different level of document processing tools and techniques. Further, now, having said this, although we look at a bigger picture of hyper automation, but there is a logical step and process which we adopt to ensure that we do the entire technology transformation correct. So, having heard about RPA for last 8 years to 10 years, very consistently across all our digital transformation journeys, we have realized that market has gone back to plug a missing part of the puzzle, which was process mining. And then even Gartner has seen that process mining has been viewed as a critical input to RPA, and then we move to a hyper automation journey. Now over here on my screen, you can see that there is a report from Process Mining Sector Scan, which came out this year, which says that 78% of leaders believe process mining is a critical or an important enabler for RPA. Definitely, before we move into a hyper automation, these are the two key ingredients which we cannot miss upon. And then most of the leaders have been using process mining for more than 80% of their process maps, and then they end up doing the right process modeling and getting the data right in their hyper automation journey. So now when we look at process mining as a critical input, we see that how do we drive end-to-end process excellence with automation? We do it through an accelerated RPA adoption across our businesses. We do it by optimizing how robots, systems, and people interact in tandem in a process. How we empower our people to drive this change from human to a bot automation. And fourth is how we continuously discover ways to improve our operations. And the answers to all these questions lies in our processes itself. Now, here is an example that how we look at two different processes which are complicated, but we think they are easy. Now the outcomes vary in terms of what we actually want and what we expect and what we actually receive. So on the left side of the process, we see a happy path process where we do not have exceptions. On the right side, we see that there are different variations, different fallouts in a process, which we realize when we practically go through the operations of that process. This is an example of a process where we receive an invoice, we process an invoice, we do a final check of invoice, we approve the invoice, and we then finally end up paying the invoice. A simple, happy path. But on the right side, we see that with the help of right process mining techniques, we end up finding out various variations in the process. Now, so the answer we have seen is process mining has been in use and has been identified as a critical parameter for hyperautomation, where we continuously monitor and optimize our processes by analyzing data from our line of business applications. Again, so this is the final output where we see ideal process differs from the actual process, and process mining as a part of hyperautomation reveals multiple underlying variations which we do not see during the final check or when we do the payment of invoice. Now, before we move ahead to a level 2 of process mining benefits, we see that there are 5 areas where we have to cover them in terms of the recommendations while we integrate process mining into a hyper automation loop. So process mining gives us the as is state of our business processes. That is number 1. Second, process mining highlights the best candidates for robotic process automation, and then plus when we move ahead towards the hyper automation journey. Third is process mining locates deviations before RPA automates them. Fourth, RPA uses these process maps as a guide for bots. And fifth is RPA gives results, process mining measures them. Now we have seen that during our automation journey of RPA, process mining helps us before RPA, during RPA, and post RPA sessions. So that is the positivity we have seen. Now coming to the intelligent automation loop, which is our core area of focus at the moment. We see that robotic process automation is there as a integral part of intelligent, but with lot of technologies which should not be ignoring in terms of workflow automation, a key lever towards our hyper automation journey. Then comes the optical character recognition, process mining, which we covered, computer vision, machine learning, and NLP. So that gives an idea that how currently when we move from our legacy way of doing things and we move towards hyper automation, there we see a combination of technologies which cover as a integrated hyper automation loop across multiple areas of processes, whether when we do design, implement, support, technology, supply, risk and compliance, audits, or human resources. The most common finance and accounting for our areas of opportunity. Hey guys, can you mute everyone? So next, the key of key trend is the maximum focus in the current era. So first is the increase in collaborative automation, where there will be an increased automation not only between technologies but also humans for the overall effectiveness of IA. And then we see that there is a emergence of fast process automation due to massive change in the interaction of humans with technology, and where we see that old solutions will not be relevant anymore, and where we need a new breed of solutions which are customized to the needs of the new workforce that are emerging out of the pandemic. Definitely with all the elements of like we see when RP offers load automation has been the top criteria of most of the process owners when they try to automate the process, and there is a massive shift from the on-premise to a cloud-based automation, where we see maximum efficiency in terms of both tangible and in terms of where we can have less spend with a pay-as-you-go model. All this has been coupled and boxed in a change management model, where the entire effectiveness of this change that we are driving through hyper automation and we are bringing new areas of automation which are prominent for process orchestration stays relevant. So we see that definitely platforms like Jiffy, RPA are one of the key platforms which is enabling all this increased efficiency to create a new value, both tangible and intangible. Now, I want to cover the final step. When we look at the intelligent automation approach, our view is to look at the entire enterprise in a scalable platform, where we look at these no-code and low-code platforms. And now the entire intelligent automation curve, it covers 6-pronged approach. First is one of the key areas is where we look at the combination of process mining and RPA in a low-touch, last-mile integration with legacy systems, and we automate all the repetitive structured process steps. Second is we look at the intelligent decisioning, where we talk about self-learning models on contextual data to improve in-flight interactions and any strategy. Third is we look at the adaptive orchestration of API and microservices, how process insights and actionable analytics can be monitored, and we can have a very well-defined case management. Third is we look at digital communication, where we talk about virtual assistants and chatbots to have a very healthy interactive communication. Fifth is the next-gen content services. We'll talk about AI-enabled cognitive automation, where we ingest, classify, extract, and infer the right set of data with end-to-end content management offering as a service, which should be looked upon as a key lever for hyperautomation. And finally, the sixth element of this approach would be to drive a customer experience which is highly immersive with the help of digital solutions to deliver omni-channel experience through web, mobile, or any other platform where we can use either Google Home or Alexa. So these are the combinations of different areas or approaches which have to come together to have a scalable, intelligent automation journey, and where we can deliver value for a much more tangible result. I'll take a pause now, and I'm happy to answer the questions.
Thank you so much, Vartal, for your session. Guys, we are open for the Q&A. So I have already shared the guidelines, mentioned that if you have any questions to Vartal, kindly raise your hands, introduce yourself, your name, your company, your designation, and put your questions to Vartal. He'll be happy to take them. We'll wait for a minute, Vartal, for the questions to come in.
Sure.
Yeah.
Hello, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes, please put your question.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Introduce yourself. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Vartal. My name is Al Collier. I'm with Jiffy.ai. And first, thank you for a great presentation. It's very informative. My question is, how can companies like Jiffy.ai overcome the confusion? For example, you talk about hyperautomation, and one of the things that makes Jiffy.ai unique is that we have hyper apps. And I see confusion myself as I talk to potential customers around what hyperautomation means, what hyper apps mean? What can we do to better and very quickly achieve clarity around what makes hyper app special and reduce the confusion? Thank you.
Sure. Thanks for a question. I'll answer that. So, over the last 2 years, the shift has been very, very massive from RPA to hyperautomation. Why and why it has happened? Because most of the consumers who have deployed bots from any RPA provider, they realize that there has been a massive spend from their side, and the results were not that effective, what they envisaged. And there came the concept of hyper automation, where they realized that if they bring in the process mining plus OCR plus more cognitive part of the automation set, first of all, they will be able to do it right in the first place, more effective with the help of right process mining tool. And whatever variations and exceptions or fallouts they have seen in the processes, even after RPA deployment, they would be able to reduce it massively with the use of cognitive part of automation. Now, if Jiffy RPA has to provide a message to the entire consumer base that how Jiffy is already a very strong platform on hyper automation, then message has to be came out very well for most of the buyers that Jiffy RPA is not only a RPA or limited to only few areas of RPA. It offers a strong process mining capability, offers a strong hyper automation capability, and then most of the consumers who restrict themselves in terms of their understanding of the platform, they would be able to look at the platform in a much more end-to-end and holistic way. And once the positioning starts going to them that the platform is capable of doing much beyond RPA, then I don't think that would be a limitation for Jiffy RPA. Jiffy RPA would have started with a very focused approach on RPA, but now as it covers entire hyper automation loop, that would be the right perception and right messaging for all the buyers of the platform who are in need to automate their processes in a much more healthy manner. Hope I answered your question.
Thank you for your perspective, Bartol. That was great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Quick question,
Yes.
Ekta. Hi, am I
Yes,
audible?
Sundar.
Rakesh here. Hi, Bartul. Rakesh here. Till recently, I was a managing director for HSBC, leading automation, intelligent automation and transformation. Currently with Wells Fargo, similar portfolio. I missed earlier part of hyper automation, but wanted your views on one observation I have in the banks is because much before we talk about AI, ML, automation, hyper automation, we still have what's called the fragmented broken processes, where most banks that I've worked with as JP or Deutsche or Goldman struggle with those COBOL and AS400 core applications with the dark screens with those green color alphabets out there. There is definitely a fatigue in the banks about fine. We were talking about APIs, now intelligent APIs and screen scraping using ES-Desk OpenSpan, now RPA with Blue Prism or UiPath or automation. Now here we have hyper automation. So one part is there is a fatigue in the system about way too many new things happening, which is what I see from operations point of view and from core technology point of view. So naturally, when we talk about hyper automation, as an enthusiast, I do read about it, and very nice presentation, very informative presentation. Thank you for that. So there is definitely a homework we are giving to operations people to catch up on. One. Second is the need for prerequisites. I have noticed in successful RP implementations and the places where you're doing machine learning and a bit of NLP, you need to have some basic infrastructure in organizations both in terms of technology and mental readiness to move from one milestone to other milestone. So question, would you recommend a big bang approach to something like hyper automation, or a more staged approach depending on what stage of majority the intelligent automation journey is for large institutions and banks?
Sure, sure, Rakesh, I'll answer your question. So thanks a lot. I think it's a very relevant question, no doubt about it. So, see, when we talk about a big bang approach, usually it doesn't work very well. The reason is because the maturity of adoption or acceptance of the entire hyper automation is not there in different operation areas or process owners. And there, although we try to force fit it, but it didn't work with me. So definitely it has to be a very logical sequential approach where we identify the pain points and the opportunities in terms of how we'll deploy different components of hyperautomation, but it goes in a sequence, and that saves a lot of I'll say spend also on the entire automation or hyperautomation journey. And secondly, we are able to do it right, because if we start from all the corners, probably we may not be able to automate the entire process in an end-to-end use case scenario. But if we start from one particular point, let's pick it up in a workflow or a process mining, and then we sequentially move to the further stages of automation. We know that what use cases we are able to solve, and what percentage of automation we can bring into those use cases. So this has been a logical step where I have done any deployments of automation on RPA, on different process mining tools in last exactly 2 years, where the shift has happened. What we used to do in RPA 3 years back is completely sunsetted now. We do it very differently because we have learned from our own mistakes in terms of the change management, which has to be driven since beginning, rather than once we automate and then we realize that we are not able to scale it up because we have not done it in the right manner. And that is the biggest learning we have seen in past.
Very useful. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Arthur. Mr. Saundarya, I know you have a question, but I really prefer sticking to the time, and we definitely have a Q&A after the panel also. So is it okay if we take your question a little later and move on to the next speaker?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Yeah.
Thank
Thanks
you so much.
for the inputs. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you, Arthur, for the interesting session. And moving on to our next session, I would like to welcome Krish Subramanian, President and COO, Jiffy.ai. He has over 20 years of experience in the IT industry and is passionate about building organizations, whether through global competency centers, technology practices, global sales organization, or startups. Krish is highly successful at taking ideas to execution at scale and has held key leadership roles across global organizations, including Tech Mahindra and Capgemini. He will be sharing his insights on intelligent automation, composable technologies. Over to you, Krish, to start your session. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time out on a weekend. I know the definition of weekend has changed with the new normal, right? So, but glad to be here and share our views on how with the change in 2020, how intelligent automation and disruption can lead to innovation. Before I get started, wanted to quickly check, am I audible?
Yes, Chris, you are.
Yes.
Yes.
So yeah, I think Vartul set a great context on on how the industry has been evolving when it comes to technologies like intelligent automation. Now, obviously, we are in an unprecedented scenario where there has been disruption in business, no doubt about it, across verticals, right? I mean, the slide that Vartul showed, definitely, except for a few segments in the industry, a lot of other global organizations are going through the pressure of what's happening around globally. but at the same time, in fact, we have been working with some of the hard hit industries in the world, including the likes of airlines. They continue to innovate while we go through this pandemic and finding innovative ways to not just go through the current phase, but also use the opportunity to kind of innovate and transform some of the processes that they thought are difficult to transform in a normal scenario. So obviously, automation is the key. I mean, I don't need to preach about that. All of us are aware that that's the way we will be able to do this. Now, as Vartul said, hyper automation was a big theme in 2020, and I'm referring to the same Gartner on 2021. Now, a couple of things, all our information security policies, practices, I think all of them have been literally thrown out of the window, right, with the pandemic coming in. So one of the challenges that, in the new format of how we are going to work as an industry is going to focus on three key pillars, like Gartner has presented. It's around how do you look at people, right? I mean, obviously after IoT, there is an Internet of Behaviors, which is a very interesting theory that's come out. At the same time, how do you manage privacy, which continues to be a big challenge. But the focus that I would like to focus on are the three important areas is location independence. So anywhere operations is reality, right? It's no longer a talk in a conference, right? I mean, and that's what is happening across. So how do you enable enterprises which are digital, semi-digital to kind of get into an anywhere operations model quickly? Obviously, some of these has been forced on organizations, and that has accelerated the change. And the second aspect is around intelligent composable business. So, how do you bring together, resilience and technologies to kind of, intelligently bring intelligence into the business operations? And obviously, third, area is around hyper automation. So I'll try to, start with, it's wish it was simple as that, right? I mean, I have been running a on-prem based setup, right? An app that has been running there. Oh yeah, why don't we, the cartoon says it all, right? Hope it was as easy as, making an app cloud native. Wish it was as easy as that. So now what's changed, right? What's changed in the last 10 years, 20 years, right? So infrastructure obviously, has moved from an on-premise to a cloud, right? I mean, a lot more of cloud adoption across enterprise applications we are seeing, including enterprise business application companies are moving their infrastructure to cloud. So definitely there is cloud adoption, and maybe in a decade, I'm sure, the economy of cloud will, become much more affordable and, usable across industries. Core systems continue to innovate. They are starting to get intelligent, whether it is ERP systems, whether it is CRM systems, whether it is core applications within an enterprise, they continue to evolve. Now, this is the layer where I would like to focus, where a lot of transformational technologies are coming in. Now, we had an era of APIs, right? As you said, APIs, intelligent APIs. Then we had workflows that came in to kind of standardize what we are doing, right? I mean, still these implementations were pretty painful. Took 2 to 3 years to implement a workflow solution in an enterprise. Then AI engines came into picture, but they were all post facto, more around business analytics and business AI, where it was more of analyzing, predicting, business outcomes. Now, two technologies that have actually kind of helped accelerate transformation, I would say, on top of these are RPA and IDP. RPA, all of us know, right? Obviously, it's, depending on who you speak to, have different views about RPA. Some say that it is very easy, quick to implement. Some say that it is brittle, it is not resistant to change. But having said that, I think it has got a good play in certain areas of an organization if it is implemented carefully. As Vartul was saying, how do you implement a robust automated process which is subject to change and not at a desktop level attended bot, right? So that's very important in that. And the most important aspect is intelligent document processing, right? Obviously, OCR companies have been there for the last many years. That technology has improved, but still there is a lot of problems, because while ERP and CRM systems, automated a lot of processes, the entry into those systems were continuing to be manual because of the non-digital formats of the data that is lying around. whether it is invoices, whether it is bill of lading, whether it is delivery notes. If you go to manufacturing, if you go to large airline organizations, similar problems. Now, what we envision in the next 5 years or so is using this layer, what we call as the low code, no code integration layer. We will be able to quickly accelerate the digital transformation, right? I mean, earlier digital transformation was very rigid of saying, yeah, I need to standardize data. I will have to bring them into an API approach, a middleware, and do it. But that has not given enough results because, the businesses are changing, the dynamics are changing. So I think the low code apps and the way they have implemented, for example, a workflow system has to be lot more nimble than the traditional BPM solutions that are out there. You don't need to hit everything with a big hammer, right? So what we believe is that apps will become autonomous. They will be business apps. There'll be a lot of innovation that the businesses would be able to do with these technologies. Now, a quick introduction about Jiffy.ai. I mean, obviously there was a question around hyper automation and hyper apps. So what we do is deliver hyper apps. Now, background about us, right? We are headquartered in the US. We launched ourselves at Stanford, and our mission is to, bring down the human-machine divide. In the last couple of decades, we have been working programming computers to understand what we want them to do. We want to kind of change the paradigm to use natural language to talk to computers for them to do various activities. So that's our mission. We've been working with a bunch of enterprise customers across the globe, a couple of leading airlines in the US and Asia, financial services organizations, retail organizations, telecom organizations. Now, I saw Vartul talk about this multi-step approach. So in the last 6 months, we have delivered engagements literally virtually, and these are big transformation projects where help companies transform millions of transactions into a touchless process working remotely. So that's the new reality where transformation is happening at a much faster pace, I would say, given that people have understood the constraints of how you go about automation at this stage. Now, a quick overview of the difference between we call our technology hyper apps, but I'm sure this would get standardized over a period of time as an industry terminology. Now, one fundamental issue between legacy applications which have been built in the last 20-30 years and what organizations are looking at today is the basic assumption that these applications have to be operated by users, right? Whether it is an SAP application which was built for manufacturing, invoice processing, etc. There was a human element involved in making that process work. Whereas when we are talking about hyper app based automation, we are talking about multiple technologies filling the gap. We are not saying AI wouldn't, humans wouldn't be required, they would be required, but bring in intelligence to this. And they will sit on top of the existing enterprise apps for businesses to truly accelerate and innovate on top of these applications, not worrying too much about the change control impact that they might create. Now, with that, what does a hyper app mean, right? So obviously, hyper automation, talks about RPA, automation, process mining, integration, workflows, all of that. And what we mean by hyper app is to render these capabilities in a low code, no code manner with very important aspects that make it sustainable, right? One is it has to be enterprise grade. So we are a browser based platform where anything anybody does in the organization, you have the ability to reuse it. So it's very important when you go into an automation journey to build the fundamental building blocks of automation. So if you're automating an SAP application, rather than looking at every task and saying, I'll start automating, 5 different people start automating, yeah, quickly done in 2-3 weeks time. But one change happens to that application, 5 people again have to go and make that change. So you need to build building blocks. So that is very important to make it a centralized, managed application. The second aspect is, how do you manage data, right? So whether it is processing, I'm sure when you are in a bank or a manufacturing organization, one of the biggest challenges you will face where you're not able to automate a lot of processes around data comes in multiple Excel formats, huge volumes of data, 100,000 records come in. And, without a data layer which can kind of get this data, transform the data, and automate it in bulk, you will end up getting bad names as RPA being macros on steroids, right? So that is what you need to avoid. So big data layer is very critical to the underlying fundamental technology. And end of the day, we look at everything as an end-to-end process, but to achieve an end-to-end process, you need a bunch of micro tasks. Now this task library is very important, right, to be available across the organization, right? You're doing invoice processing, you want to do currency conversion. You might need the same currency conversion to be done in some other process. Now, how quickly you can build a reusable task library and leverage it across apps becomes very easy, very important. And finally, render all these capabilities to a business user using a low-code, no-code app designer. So what we believe is to encapsulate all these capabilities in a nice manner to an end user, to a technical user in a hyper app. Now, when you talk about hyper apps, there could be different types of hyper apps. Invoice processing could be one, purchase order processing could be one, employee onboarding could be one. So the idea is that once you build a hyper app, like when we build hyper apps as a product organization, but our partners build hyper apps for their customers. The idea is that once you build a hyper app, it is repeatable across multiple customers and can be hosted on a cloud, and you eventually really can deliver this as a service, right? So you want to be in a scenario where you go to your 100 customers, internal or external, and say, hey, I have built this solution. I want you to use it. I will charge you a true as a service capability for automating your process. So that's where, this will help you accelerate your ROI in a true as a service model. Technology wise, I will not spend a lot of time. I mean, obviously our platform covers all the aspects that you need to build an end-to-end process automation. I'd like to explain what's the difference between a typical automation that you do using multiple technologies like RPA, AI, OCR, and a hyper app. So if you look at Jiffy's invoice processing hyper app, it's a completely configurable solution where you could drag and drop and configure a source from which the invoices would come, index the invoice, prioritize the invoice, run intelligent extraction using machine learning to automatically extract the data from 4,000, 5,000 formats in which these invoices would come for an enterprise. Run validation. These are the places, the next two steps are the most complex pieces, right? Where you want to run validations, the validations will be different depending on the type of invoice, exceptions would be different, approvals would be different. Now, until unless you make these things configurable for the end user to have the ability to define this, we are always, hoping that this low-code solution will solve the ultimate problem of, maintainability. But what we have done is to provide that capability to an end user to, for him or her to configure that, and finally, complete the process of posting the invoice and supply portal management, etc., and providing a complete visualization. So I will show you a quick video of how does the platform work when it comes to process automation. So as I was referring to, every automation that you do in the platform is an app. So these boxes that you see are different apps within different departments of the organization, controlled by roles, controlled by who can access these apps. Now, I'll show a very simple example of an invoice registration app, how you design it. Now, obviously, depending on who logs in, you get a view of a business user, of a AP analyst. Different people can get different views in that. Now, designing an automated process, right, is as simple as that. So the platform covers the power of RPA workflow them in a very simple, usable workflow. So if you look at this invoice processing workflow, right, I mean, you can drag and drop various components, including, say, to start with, you want to start, I'll just step ahead a little bit, start with something
Chris,
like
we are not able to see the application. We are only seeing your slides. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Just give me a second.
And if you could put them in a slide mode, it'd be better. Thank you.
Sure. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so this is the app that I was talking about. So the one Jiffy looks like this. So once you
So
look,
Chris, one more request. Could you just blow it up so that you can, we can see you on the screen. So I think the audience wants to see this in full screen.
let me see. Let me stop my video. Maybe that will make it.
Yes, yeah, that would be great.
Yeah. So can you see the screen?
Yeah, but it's still
Yeah.
showing half only.
I can see. Maybe if you just pinch the screen a
Yeah.
couple of times, it's fitting in well. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Yep. So this is the app-based approach I was referring to, right? So the platform has got multiple apps that you can create on the platform, and these are end-to-end processing apps. So these are not tasks that you create. Now, if you go into something like an invoice processing app, you have the ability to quickly orchestrate an end-to-end flow, right? I wouldn't call it a workflow because it is not beyond a workflow. It's an automated flow which combines automating UI tasks, automating cognitive tasks, automating workflow, approval mechanisms, all of them into a seamless integrated flow. So if you look at something like an email, reading an email, downloading an invoice, and processing it. It's simple as configuring steps like this, where you log into a drag and drop an email browser node, click on multiple configurations, decide what to do with the email, right? I mean, decide how to, what to read from an email, how to extract the data from an email. So that's how you drag and drop an email node. And then where it gets, interesting is, things like classification. Now, I'll take a pause here. If you look at classification, you can apply machine learning in multiple places, right? When you're getting a bunch of documents, you want to really decide which user group I want to send this document. You're in a telecom sector, you're getting a lot of tickets, or you're in the service industry, you're getting a lot of tickets. You could run a machine learning model to auto-classify these tickets and allocate them into a corresponding queue. Similarly, if you get an email, you want to see whether it's an invoice, whether it's a bill of lading, if it is different types of documents. So you could invoke a machine learning model to extract the content of an email and apply machine learning for it to automatically predict what type of document it is. Then you can actually create a document table to process a document. It could be an invoice. So the IDP solution that we have integrates machine learning to automatically understand these formats. So you could actually have an invoice data extracted. It could be a single line item. It could be a multi-line like an address. It could be a line items in the table. So you have the ability to kind of extract all types of fields from a document, and these formats are pretty flexible. So you see, again, why we refer ourselves as a hyper app or a low code no code app is if you are not restricted by a specific format, right? So you're providing the power of deciding the format, what to extract, etc., to the end user to provide it provide the flexibility that they lack today using the typical automation approach. Now, once you do that, right, you could say, process this document, extract the data. Then once the document gets extracted, insert it into a workflow, right? So the Jiffy Select actually inserts it into a workflow. And once you insert it into a workflow, I'm skipping a little bit, right? For all the approved invoices, you're saying that, hey, go and post this into an ERP system like SAP, right? So to automate something like an SAP through the UI, you have the ability to go to the SAP screen, record the controls. And the platform doesn't rely on screen coordinates. We understand the underlying object capabilities, so that makes the automation robust. And once you familiarize these controls like username, password, etc., all of them automatically centrally get stored in a repository, so that tomorrow somebody else is automating SAP, right? They can reuse those controls, not build them again from scratch. So, I mean, this is how the UI automation, script will look like. And then once you execute the task, I mean, again, these can be run, across multiple machines, right? It's a highly scalable, elastic capability, which can be run on the cloud, or, one node can be running on the cloud, another node can be running on a desktop. It's a hybrid architecture where you could actually, automate these processes, in a scalable manner. And then, it goes and processes these documents, extracts the document. And to bring a business user, let's say, for example, now you process the invoice. Now you want to provide a view to a business user. We have a capability called form where, how do you manage exceptions? So the bot extracted the data, tried to put it in SAP, it failed. Now you have the ability to say, hey, flag such exceptions to, say, a business user or different roles that you have, and provide, the status. Say if it is in a manual intervention state, make it available to that business user, right? So when a business user logs in, he or she would see such a view, right? He doesn't need to care about what the bot did, how it did, etc. He or she will be able to go and see a screen where he can click and figure out what happened to that invoice. So you can see that these are the invoices that are in the new status, right? He or she can click that invoice and manually train if required, if the machine learning has not automatically extracted. So, and also approve invoices, verify invoices, all of them. So bringing in the workflow also into the picture. So that's a quick overview of the platform that I wanted to show, how we combine the capabilities of RPA, machine learning, document processing, workflow. All the components that typically are part of a hyper automation journey, but make it into a meaningful automation where you have the ability to kind of bring together. So if you look at the invoice processing hyper app, what happens within the hyper app is you provide a configurable option for business users to decide what they want to do, right? So just a minute on that. Depending on the type of invoices, you could decide what transformation rules. So for example, today in an RPA based implementation, these data transformation rules, these validation rules are all coded into the bot. There isn't a mechanism for the business user to decide this type of invoice, I need to apply this transformation, I need to apply this validation, right? So you're providing that capability of all of that on a screen to a business user. So he or she can stitch together what he or she thinks is the ideal process. Whereas from a technology platform standpoint, we and our partners can provide that interface to them. So that's a quick overview right now. Obviously, you can use it for complex processes like invoice processing. You could use it for simple, tasks like, you have a credit balance refund process, an enhancement process. So anything that has got to do with the workflow, automation, data extraction, validations, all of those kind of processes, you could actually implement, this technology. And obviously, why such an approach, right? One is, drastically brings down the time to deliver an end-to-end process, not tasks. Cost of processing, you have the flexibility to offer this as a true SaaS model, which everybody has been hoping for the last 3-4 years, but we have been able to provide that to say that don't worry about how many bots you are using, what you are using, how many users are logging in. We have the ability to go and tell, I will charge you per invoice, I will charge you per claim, I will charge you per KYC request that is getting processed, which is very easy for a business team to understand ROI and realize and decide whether this is a process worth automating. Is it going to cost me 30 cents, 20 cents to process an invoice? Is it worthwhile, right? And that's what we are looking at. And with the approach, it becomes highly maintainable, right? You could, if you're building a COE, right, you could actually build it in such a way that these apps can leverage the capabilities across and provide what this technology has been claiming. We can actually provide a self-service capability to business users. So with that, I'll take a pause and if there are any questions, more than happy to answer them.
Yes. Thank you so much, Krish, for the interesting session. Is it okay if I take a question a little later, because we are running a little late actually with one session. So once we finish panel, we can open the floor for the Q&A, and audiences can note down the questions, and we can take all the questions at one go with the respective speakers. Will that work, Krish?
Yeah, absolutely. People can post their questions also if required on the chat. And
yes, please, I'll request all the audiences, you can post your questions to addressing the concerned speaker, and they can also answer there itself, and or else we can take it later after the panel. Yes, Thank you for understanding.
Ekta, just one thing, if, before Jiffy leaves, if he can, Chris, can post his number and email ID where we
Yes.
can him.
Krish is here to stay, and
Email, yeah, because
Krish is
it's
here.
very hard to contact them. The
Oh,
wrong number.
right. Right. So Krish is here. We have Sangeeta also. We have few people from Jiffy.ai who are here with us. So don't worry. I will be requesting Krish, you can please do that, sharing the contact with Atul on a personal note.
Yeah, I can share it with everyone. So
Yes,
I'm just
that
posting
would
it
be
on the
great.
chat window.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that would be great. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Quickly moving on to the next session. We are already running out of the time, but we'll try sticking to it. We have Mr. Amit Sharma, Director, Data Science at Global AI Accelerator, GAIA Ericsson. He is responsible for building solutions using AI and ML technologies to create data-driven, intelligent, and robust systems for automation, evolution, and growth in the telecom domain. Prior to this, he was leading the AI and ML capability for the ADWIP in the HR talent domain. With over 20 years of experience in product development and leadership, Amit is extremely passionate about design, architecture, data, and loves to be hands-on with the technology. He will be sharing his insights on exploring AI-infused automation opportunity in your FOW strategy, that is the future of work and you. Over to you, Amit, to start your session, please.
Sure. Thank you, Ekta. Just to check, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
All right. So let me just get started with this. And my screen is visible, right?
Yes.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for the kind introduction, Ekta. And I know we are running late on time, so I'll try and make it quick. So with that, let's get started here. So I'm going to focus more on the impact of AI as I see it, and how AI will transform the future of work in that transformation of itself. So let me, without further ado, get into the details of what I'm going to cover. So of course, I don't need to talk a lot about Ericsson. We know in the current times also, when connectivity is the biggest thing, and we are talking about 5G and IoT rollouts by the billions, we are looking at Ericsson being one of the leading providers of networking services. Without that, we wouldn't be talking at this time. So I'm really proud to be part of this organization. Some of the AI solutions, the reason I even flash these have a dual purpose. Apart from talking about what we do in Ericsson as part of Gaia, the Global AI Accelerator, I also want to highlight what kind of automations, Chris talked about engaging with telecom networks. I know for a fact that there are many other industries which are doing it. In Ericsson, our strategy is zero touch automation, which means we want to automate our network services. Today, it's managed by a huge workforce. From that manpower to a totally automated solution, not just because we want to save costs, yes, we do, but even more importantly, as we roll out more and more complex, sophisticated technologies like 5G, I can assure you the number of antennas, and each of these antennas being MIMO, multiple input, multiple output, the amount of signals you are dealing with, the optimization, the energy management, it is not just a choice to use AI and ML, it's a mandate. We simply cannot do that huge amount of data crunching to make decisions on the fly, to reroute a signal to a different tower, or for that matter, predict that a cell tower is probably suboptimal. Stuff like that is going to be only possible through AI and ML. So like I said, it's not a choice, but a mandate, and companies are moving to it in different ways at different paces. We'll cover that in a moment. And similarly, problems across self-organizing networks, diagnostic, preemptive, preventive maintenance, and stuff like that is being taken care of in telecom using AI. And Vartul and Chris did talk about automation, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. Just know that AI is again enabling. In fact, the example you saw, which Chris just showed, was an example of reading an email and extracting fields, which is again RPA from where we have started, a business process automation through robotic process automation. Today, people using hyper automation, AI, ML enabled automation, cognitive automation, but they all mean the same thing, being able to add a little more intelligent and smart capabilities to what is being automated. And that's where the main focus today is, be text processing, speech processing, image recognition, OCR, you name it. So that's where we are moving towards rapidly, and the technologies underlying are also evolving as we go along. So I just want to mention two anchors of key anchors of future of work. To me, they are AI adoption and the contingent workforce. how quickly will companies adopt to AI will define their future readiness in the capacity and in a meaningful way. It's not that you just take on AI and say we want to do something with AI. It has to be meaningful, it has to be impactful. And in that sense, we will just touch upon what the AI strategy should be. And the second part is the way workforce itself is changing, and we are talking about gig economy and all. So that's another thing that's gonna really take the workforce by storm. So we all know this. Today we are somewhere from manually driving the cars to deployments of partially assisted, where people are hands off. A person can drive a Tesla being partially automated. They cannot yet choose to be completely off the driver's seat. But this is where we are. But from automation to autonomy, this is already being enabled through LiDARs and image recognition and real-time processing of information, which is a big achievement. But we are far from getting to a totally autonomous, except in the proof of concept. So this is the journey, and the transfer of responsibility from human to machine currently is in a stage where we can call it cobotics, the collaborative robotics, where human-assisted robots or robotics-assisted humans, whichever way you look at it, is currently in the technology landscape of implementation. How is the AI adoption across the industry? If you look at AI adoption for different functions, business functions such as service operations and marketing, sales, product service development, in different capacities, the percentage of people who feel that they are out there, telecom seems to be, obviously it's service heavy. And by service, it's not just taking calls. We are talking about managing the networks. We are talking about being able to manage the configurations of the networks, everything included, which is done by humans today. There's a huge scope to automate it using AI and ML, intelligent automation, and same goes for the product development. Again, the design of antennas. Some of them actually already employ a lot of these AI ML technologies, but there's a lot more scope to take it forward. Similarly, in the high-tech industries, financial services, this is from a McKinsey report, and I can link you to it. But the point I'm trying to convey is it's fast running across multiple functions, across multiple industries. And most of the companies, the further they are on this journey, I would say are already into the future of intelligent automation. So this is one slide where I would spend some time, because typically the barriers to adoption of AI, AI in a company are exactly the reasons or focus areas for defining the strategy, AI strategy in a company. Quite a few times the companies want to take on AI and ML just because they want to. It's not really about which business process am I looking at, or what are the low-hanging fruits. Does it have to be a high-end algorithm, a deep learning algorithm to help me get past a problem? Or is it a quick win where I could actually apply a small statistical approach and actually get the business impact to the next level? So this lack of clear strategy, and this is both a leadership function and a product management function, can be and is clearly the top contributor to adoption, barrier to adoption, right? Lack of talent, absolutely. I think again here, I feel that quite a few companies in their drive to adopt AI actually end up taking on more of deep learning experts and AI experts, which is good. But you also need to look at the business side. Are they really good at taking on the business problem and driving the business outcome using AI as against just knowing AI? So sometimes it's always meaningful to, also make the team such that you have a product management function, subject matter expertise, the data scientists all come together and deploy your AI workforce. There are quite a few others, and they all contribute to the AI adoption in a meaningful way. One of them, again, here is the lack of available data and the silos. There are many companies which work in these, every department has their own AI ML vertical, and that kind of makes it very difficult for people to work together, actually make the realization of the goal really easy. Departments have to come together, data has to come together, it has to be federated. At the same time, it has to be also respected for its privacy concerns, compliance concerns. So it's a balancing act, but companies, they have to have this driven from the top for it to be successful, right? So these are some of the key concerns leaders should look at towards adopting AI strategy. Going to the next slide. And I don't think this is, anyone doesn't know about the gig economy, but we see more of it coming through, and more people. If anything, this pandemic has told us that remote working from home, and actually enabling technologies to do that has become, someone says it has become 10x. People are much closer to using a gig economy than they were the last year. So here we are. talking about freelancing, temporary jobs, people choosing what they want to do, having the flexibility. It's also cost, I would say, effective for the companies themselves, but it does come with its own cons. Like, you may end up with compliance issues, or you may end up with not finding the right skill when you need them, as against having to onboard an employee. It has its pros and cons, but I just want to show some stats here. The contingent workforce. Already up to 30% of the current US workforce is contingent, as per one report from Intuit, and 80% of the large corporations plan to substantially increase the use of contingent workforce, and it's happening as we speak. So it's just a matter of time that the gig economy or contingent workforce is going to be ingrained into the fabric of a workforce planning and management. And there again, you will see AI and ML recommending the right mix of people, the right kind of talent, matching the jobs to the candidates. And we built one such solution when I was a part of my previous company, ADP. I think all of these AI ML solutions will enable this even better and more effectively. So with that, let me quickly cover 3 focus areas for the future of AI itself. And they are very, very important. Each one of them is actually, in some sense, a key enabler for the future of AI to work with business processes in a meaningful way. First is explainability. Explainability builds trust. Today's AI models are, if they are extremely good, they are sophisticated, they are black box neural networks or ensembles or a stacked series of models, and that's where you simply do not get to understand how it works. So to be able to explain the outcome with respect to inputs builds trust, it builds transparency, takes care of bias, the concern about fairness goes away. Obviously, if you know why a model is saying something with respect to whether a loan should be given or denied, or whether a person is going to leave the company, actionability improves. And obviously, as a result of all of this, the improvability of the model also becomes easy, because now you know which factors it's using to make a decision. You can tune them even better. So this is the number one requirement. Explainability, you'll see it coming even more strongly as we go along. And by the way, GDPR already made the right to explanation in AI one of the legal needs. The wordings are a bit ambiguous, I would say, because it allows for a black box AI to be assisted by a human overseer, if you will, to be able to make such decisions. But this will become more and more, I would say, clear as we go along, because just like right to privacy, right to forget my data, right to explainability has been there in some ways, like the credit score ratings and all, and it's becoming more mainstream, right? So it's no more a choice. We have to think through explainability even before we get to building the AI/ML models. It should be thought through at the product management level. Will people ask for it? One of the models that we built for my previous organization was a flight risk, predicting employee will leave the company or not in the next certain months. The accuracy was pretty good, but questions that kept coming back were, why is one employee at a higher risk than the other employee? It's called, I would say, it was a differential kind of a query as to comparative, like, why are you saying this employee is a high risk than the other? And it simply occurred to us that we should have thought through explainability right from the very beginning, as against an hindsight. Similarly, why the same person in the same team, same job with the same salary, one is at a high risk and the other is a lower risk? These kind of questions do come back in almost every scenario. Here is the reality. As your network gets more accurate, they become more sophisticated. You have the simpler models here around here, classification rules, the linear models, the decision trees. Up to here are by default easily explainable. So the explainability is high, but real world problems don't get solved with these in most cases. Your basic OCR and trying to figure out whether the email is spam or not will borderline get into the accurate models, and thereby losing explainability. Good news is we have solutions. Here we go. So there are many technologies which make it easy. First of all, if you can use a simpler model, use them. A linear model, a logistic regression, a decision tree, they're all inherently simpler and explainable if you use them the right way. So if you can live with the accuracies that they have to offer, please go ahead and just use them without much ado. But if you end up using some of the more complex models, then you want to use what is called a surrogate model, a model agnostic approach, which means your neural net or the let's say a gradient boosting machine or a random forest or a support vector machine, whatever it is, has come up with an outcome. You will need these kind of packages or solutions like Lime, SHAP, and there is H2O's driverless AI. All of them help you take those predictions from a model, whichever model it is, and actually apply these technologies to give you the explainability. And these are, I mean, we could spend a whole day just talking about them. So, but in interest of time, I'll move forward with respect to the fact that yes, technologies are there and they are getting added onto as we speak. Similarly, for image recognition, today surrogate models can highlight, a line can highlight which part of the image was used to learn whether it was a dog or a cat, or whether it was a spam mail or not a spam email, right? So those are the explainability approaches. Good news, they are here, but they are being developed. They are not arrived yet, as we call it. Second is the federated AI. Today, the privacy reasons, this is the biggest deal. Data is not easy to flow. It's easy to say that even in a company like Ericsson, we are globally distributed. The norms of Europe with respect to GDPR do not allow for data to move outside the nations, the subcontinent there. And similarly, the laws in US, the laws of the land in India, the data movement has become a big challenge. Federated AI is a very, very active area of research, and there are so many papers out there which talk about how can model learn on the edge, which means a smaller version of an AI model which uses the data locally at the node, at the edge, is used to train the model. However, the model parameters themselves, which are learned at the node level, the edge level, are sent back to a central server where there is a centralized machine learning model. Data is not going there. So privacy and all the risks associated with data privacy or security are mitigated. At the same time, the generic model is also learning based on the shapes and the distributions or the statistical properties of each of these models as to which, give them some global parameters to work with. Again, a very, very deep topic, but I wanted everyone to take away this fact that federated AI is going to solve the problem around data movement and data privacy. I just talked about why. It also makes real-time prediction possible because now you have the edge device itself making predictions. So it's no more about making a cloud call, having a connectivity, and then making, and sometimes you may be sending an image. If you're sending an image, you're literally sending JPEGs, or maybe PNGs, so MBs of data. That also goes away. So in a way, if federated learning is here to stay, but if it really takes on the way it does today's monoliths do, we're actually much better off, faster, and secure. Last but not least, I want to talk about machine reasoning. Machine reasoning is one very, the problem with typical machine learning models, and in Ericsson, we talk about machine reasoning even more so, is because the machine learning models do good with the data they have learned from, the training data. They are not able to infer, they are not able to reason as to why a certain decision is made to do something in a certain scenario. So what happens is, it works great with the data it has seen, but in the scenario of a new data, unlike humans are able to abstract the knowledge, abstract the information from from their outside world and make decisions even in new situation. ML algos are not good with that. So there is a partnership that has to play between the data science based ML algos and domain expert based machine reasoning models. So concepts like ontology, knowledge graphs, expert systems, they are required to be able to make machine learning algorithms in a shape that they can actually take some actions using human reasoning kind of concepts, right? So again, this may be too small a time to actually explain how it works, but at a very high level, you can think of machine learning is learning from the numeric data. Everything is either vectorized or everything is numbers at the end of the day. The bits and bytes that go to the machine learning algo, and it makes sense of them in terms of patterns, statistical models. But machine reasoning is symbolic. Symbolic means it's more human readable. It's if-then rules. It is state machine rules. But with each one reinforcing the other, there is quite a likelihood that we can build systems which can actually make sense to humans in a way enabling explainability, but also making the right decisions with lesser data or newer situations, which is today not very possible with the conventional machine learning systems. So this was machine reasoning. So again, it helps generate conclusions. Machine reasoning inferencing, knowledge inferencing is easy. It works with meaningful abstractions and it can handle new data and scenarios. So to conclude my discussions, I talked about the future of work, the key anchors being AI adoption, how companies can adopt AI, and how the contingent workforce is going to be the future of workforce management. And the key focus areas for future of AI itself, like the trusted AI through explainability, federated AI through decentralization, and machine reasoning through symbolic graphs. So with that, thank you very much. Ekta, over to you.
Yes. Thank you so much, Amit, for the interesting session. I know there would be questions, but I would request you to stay for a little while. We need to finish with our panel, and then we can open the floor for the Q&A. Will that work?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amit, for understanding.
I just have one question to Amit. Is that a bot sitting behind you?
Oh no, that's my chair, man.
It actually looks like a bot.
Yeah, I just thought I'd bringing some humor into this whole thing, right? So
no, yeah. I will probably put some lights on it so as to make it look like eyes. Thank you for the question. All right.
Thank you so much. Okay, thank you. Moving to the last session of the day, that's the panel discussion. The topic for the panel is predicting the unexpected, the role of automation in driving business service resiliency in the age of COVID. Now, I would like to invite all the panel speakers and our panel moderator. The panel moderator is Mr. Pawan Mathur, Vice President and Head Electrical Automation, TPP, Ultratech Cement, Aditya Birla Group, having 26 years of work experience at various business functions at Ultratech. Now, I would like to introduce our panel speakers, Mr. Vartal Mittal, Technology and Innovation Specialist, Ms. Smita Ganesh, Head of Data Innovation India Ericsson, Mr. Sanjeev Ravindranathan, Director, Automation and Efficiency at Anheuser-Busch InBev, Ms. Sangeeta Falgunan, VP Sales and Alliance, APAC, Jiffy.ai, Mr. Sudeep Srivastav, he is the Head Digital Productivity Studio, East Hemisphere, Schlumberger, IT Digital Enterprise Systems, Mr. Meenu Singhal, Vice President, Industry Automation, Schneider Electric. Over to you, Mr. Pawan, to start with the panel. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon. Am I audible, Ekta?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay.
Requesting all the panelists to please on your video so that the audiences can have a feel and look with you all.
Yeah. So thank you, Vartul, Chris, and Amit for setting up before panel discussion. So I think I can just summarize it again for everybody, that scale, security, profitability, reduced dependency on human, repeat accuracy. So these are the main constituents which we heard from all the speakers. And this is what all the customers or all industry is looking forward to through these technologies, or we say intelligent automation. So I will not discuss much on this because a lot has been said, and we have been benefited through these 3 sessions. All right. So I will just from the point of view of a user, because cement companies are the users for these technologies and intelligent automation. So I will just share my perspective on this, that how we are seeing these technologies and how we are using and have started to use these technologies. If I remember that before around 20 years, 21 years, we had push buttons in our, I'm limiting my talk to only process automation. So we have been using push buttons earlier. Then we had some discrete controllers, and then we had PLC plus SCADA systems, and then now we have
I think we have lost Mr. Pawan.
Yes, we are not able to.
Yes. Mr. Pawan, I think we have lost him.
No, should let him join back.
Yes, let him join back. I'll just inform him. Yeah. Yeah, he is connecting again. I just spoke to him just a few minutes. Yes. Automation. Yes, Mr. Pawan, I think you have logged in. Mr. Pawan, am I audible to you?
Maybe the next speaker should start, Ekta.
Mr. Pawan, am I audible?
Ekta, why don't we start with the next speaker? Let Mr. Pawan join in, and I think we should be okay.
Yes, Sudeep, we can do that. He is just he was already connected, but I guess we couldn't hear him. So I think we should start. Do you think we should start? Because he's just rejoining in again.
I think the first speaker can start and then he can take over when he's back.
Okay. Yeah, just a moment. We can do that.
And then I can, should I go ahead?
Yes, Mr. Minu, yes, you can start meanwhile. I will wait for him. No problem.
Thank you. Thanks very much. And while we wait for Mr. Pawan and continuing the subject, what Mr. Pawan has been talking about the IA and AI in the field of automation and for manufacturing. That's what I'm going to take the things forward. I'm going to talk about the subjects which are relevant for the session around how Industry 4.0 is revolutionizing the industrial manufacturing market for India, and how do we look at the scenarios changing post-COVID, which is most important because pre-COVID the things were different. We are already now in the middle of the COVID, so we can't say that we are post-COVID, but as we venture through this COVID time, what are the major changes which are happening in the industrial environment? How IA and AI are finding their presence in the industries? Ekta, am I okay?
Yes, yes.
So, when we talk about the fourth industrial revolution, this is where the machines are augmented. They're with the web connectivity and connected to a system that can visualize the entire process and support decision making. So it is an informed decision making capability which has been provided by Industry 4.0 solutions and systems around it. Various surveys have been done by PwCs and McKinsey's in the past, and the gist of those surveys is manufacturers are looking to secure simultaneous gains, both from lowering the cost as well as adding revenues to the business in which they are doing. And this is from digitization. They have been investing very strongly in digitizing their processes for next maybe multiple years. 3 to 5 years is the time which we have already seen. And it results in efficiency improvement, employee empowerment, downtime reduction, predictive maintenance, improving the uptime of the machines. They are the need of the hour. Everyone wants to ensure that the cost to produce the same good falls down year over year. How effectively it can be managed, and this is where we say that data is the oil. And when data is the oil, I was hearing a colleague of mine in a few days back, he said the process industries are Saudi Arabia. And I really like that because it means they are generating so much of data, which is the data of process, which when transmitted appropriately to right places through right means and analyzed appropriately will help the manufacturer to take decisions to improve quality, to improve production, as well as to ensure that the time to go to market reduces, and they are going to optimize not only production, but also assets. So that's what it is talking all about. And with post-COVID pandemic, where we see that the world is changing from physical to more and more digital, I have come across, as Schneider itself, I have come across people, customers who started asking for digital flats, who are now going for more and more requirements of digital twins to be created. How they can do their services from remote. There have been some manufacturers who are saying that you ship your machines, but we don't want your people to be in the plant. Can you help us commission the plant remotely? Remote connectivities, remote monitoring, remote support, and now remote commissionings are the need of the hour, which we see will be driven more and more as we venture into the post-COVID era, which is here in it now. And Industry 4.0 has been driving significant digital disruption, and the industries are going through massive disruption because of this. When we look at, I would like to talk about a few of the digital disruptions driven by Industry 4.0. And I've categorized them in around 5 of those disruptions. One of them is IoT, which is a combination of IT plus OT, which is helping the optimizing the productions with significant downtime reduction. It's a digital era. And if you see the way markets are growing, the digital transformation market in the industries are growing 4 times higher than the standard automation market. Second one is augmented reality. Augmented reality, the growth rate of the market size of augmented reality based solutions, which is helping the employees to get empowered, the processes to get remotely being monitored, and the decision making getting more and more engaged with the data which is coming to it. This market is growing by more than 40% now. Third one, the third digital disruption is big data. Data, every process, everything which we do is generating data. And to take the data up, somewhere the systems are capable with the legacy, what has been connected to them. Somewhere they're connected with drives, somewhere they're connected with transmitters. These drives, these transmitters, they themselves have the ability to take the data and give it back. Are we using it? If not, we can have low-cost sensors also to be installed, which can give data back. So this helps in tracking, tracing, time to market, operational efficiencies, they go on increasing. The fourth digital disruption, which is critical now and which we are talking, is AI. And AI is expanding with more than 6 times of the current expandings. Most of the customers have started looking at AI-based solutions, whether it's for plant and for the process, but eventually driving the efficiencies. And these efficiency-driven solutions in the process industries are helping the same customers to do more with less. I take the example of the smart factories which have been created. Even Schneider has developed 2 smart factories. One is in Bangalore, one is in Hyderabad. And we have seen that to do the same production, which we have been doing with the same quality or better quality, the cost has fallen down year over year. It's almost 2 years that we have completed our Hyderabad, and more than 1 year we have completed Bangalore. More than 7 to 10% cost reductions have been achieved to do the same work. That is phenomenal, and we have taken multiple customers there, and that is where the proof and the trust builds up when customers see the real things happening in these smart factories. And now, and this time, we do the virtual tour of the people to go and actually visit and see digitally how and what benefits of AI can be gained when the AI is implemented in the process. The fifth digital disruption, and not to discount that, is cybersecurity. When we have data, we need to secure our data, because data is giving everything which you have in the plant. And this market is growing like anything. We have to develop a safer market, a safer environment and ensuring that the data which is collected is not only safe, but it can also be trusted. So blockchains which are coming in along with the cybersecurity norms will help the change of and transfer of data to be very well being tracked and trusted. So these are the 5 value digital disruption I wanted to talk about, and just to give you some value proposition around the AR plus IoT solutions which people have been implementing in different plants, in machines, in process. It is helping to connect the process, it is helping to connect people and data, ensuring that the physical is getting converted to more and more digital and made available at the stakeholders' table without any delays. That's most important. And that's a very significant improvement in when we look at these improvements drive efficiencies, scalability, data-driven compliances. So a customer, you people can be more compliant because you have the access to that data and that is completely recorded. There's a historian which is working around it, which is at the back end creating the data. Assets can be optimized, process can be optimized, quality can be improved, and the downtimes can be reduced. Some of the challenges which we see, one is in workforce, and we heard the last speaker talking about it, the workforce readiness. So what we recommend, there should be a combination of workforce which is digital, as well as someone who has experience of physical processes which the plant has been running. We should have the physical experiences mapping into digital technologies and creating a pyramid which talks about intelligent automation being created because of the knowledge and the technology, both of different people with different mindset and different backgrounds. Digitization in the industries is growing like anything. So it's growing from somewhere around 25, 26%. Now we're expecting it to be more than 60% in the next 3 years. Production downtimes, they are improving. You know, the uptime of the machines are improving. Efficiencies have been improving. Can we increase the age of the equipments which we are using? Yes. Should we do the maintenance on routine basis, or we predict it and do it only when it is needed? So now the world is going even from preventive maintenance to a need-based maintenance. If your pump or motor or your equipment doesn't need maintenance, why should you go and maintain it? Can someone take the data, give it back, compare it with the history, give analysis with the IA that, okay, I need the maintenance of this equipment to be done after 15 days, not now. Or maybe after 6 months, not now. So it is helping the customers to ensure that they optimize the efforts which they are consuming in maintaining their plant, in running their plant, and also in ensuring that overall cost is reduced with the knowledge of process and production which you already have. Maybe I would like to summarize a few things in terms of putting a synopsis, concluding it that there is an environment which is getting digitally driven. COVID is driving it much more faster than what was expected. And people have selectively started prioritizing and investing in digital transformations which are long-term and sustainable. Sustainability is high when we get digital. So companies, most of the companies, whether it's manufacturers or their vendors, they have started creating strategies which are around augmented reality, IIoTs, AI, machine learning, and they are having the strategies work to ensure their processes are mapped, the critical processes are mapped to do this. That's what we really see. And multiple companies have started coming up with different ways of adopting the different technologies. One of the way is that you go for a capex investment right in the beginning, and then it start the OpEx is low. But now companies have started coming in from a capex to OpEx model, just like the way you pay for your wages or the salaries, or you get into the investment on the OpEx. Companies are coming out with the model that even hardware can be leased. I would say the IT/OT hardware can be on lease, and you can start paying for usage. So these are the way companies are finding more and more benefits in converting the model from capex to OpEx, which is a win-win for every one of us. And obviously, it drives results, it drives efficiencies. It's only on all of us to see that where we can take the next step. And we highly encourage people to start looking at digital transformations to be one of the key imperatives which can help them improve their processes as well as reduce the cost to produce. Ekta, with this, I would like to answer any questions, concerns, or any kind of questions if we have, or if come back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Minu. Thanks for giving your perspective on the industrial automation and how it is moving forward, what are the requirements from the industry and how the technology is evolving, how people are making roadmaps for the digitalization, and which are the main technologies like you rightly said that digital twins or artificial intelligence or data analytics, AR, VR. These are the main things which are getting emerging as the major technologies for any process industries or other industries. So thank you very much for your perspective on this. And in the interest of the time, I'm going to the next speaker, and who is Sangeeta Fagunan from Ziffy. And I would like her to share that how intelligent automation or RPA can be implemented to any business process and how you are seeing the increased uses in the current pandemic and way forward. And what are the trends in reaction to pandemic? Since Jiffy is involved in many of such processes, RPA, so I would like to hear from Sangeeta. Sangeeta, to you.
Thank you so much, Amit. So I think Chris did a wonderful session and introduced what we have from a product perspective and how our platform pans out and how we are focused on building out what we call as these hyper apps. So concept which is rather new and was introduced today. So I hope, so with that, I think what I'm seeing on the ground being part of Jiffy's team driving the sales initiatives in the APAC region, definitely there is business disruption, and it's to do with people as well, and also the time to market, right? And what we are seeing is they want technologies, they want to replace, they want to do something new, but they want it fast. They want it to be reusable and repeatable. Scale, cost, outcomes, ownership. It's no longer about, how many bots or what you need in order to drive this, but they need you to also own the outcome and own completely the transformation bit. And it has to be operations anywhere, because no longer you're able to go on site and put people there and make these things work. And so if you look at it from an end-to-end, people were talking about, UX, they were talking about customer experience, but now it's really about total experience. So they want to have an end-to-end total experience. And when we looked at the era of RPA, where we were primarily lifting and shifting data from systems of record, and which were mostly rule-based, you were getting about 20% benefits in the automation, which itself was great, considering that ERP after 3 years gave you hardly 2 or 3%. But you were primarily automating a single role or a single function. That was not enough, because we went through that phase for 3 years. We hear Virgil talk about all the, the handicaps of those processes and how you got some quick wins, but then you had to come back to the drawing board and think about change management, think about how you want to re-architect it. And you also wanted to think about how you would make these automations more intelligent, in the sense that you wanted to do more of these tasks. So if you were looking at single roles, single functions, it was fine. But when you started looking at processes from an end-to-end perspective, you realize that you are not just dealing with data which is in systems of record. So the key is, again, here data, like what Minu was pointing out too, right? So data becomes the new oil, and it is very important because you're working with data. And when you want to bring in intelligence, you're primarily looking at AI, machine learning, which plays on data. You need good data quality, you need good data sets, whether you're trying to do the training. And where do these data come from? It's easy if you're dealing with systems of record where everything is in rows and columns, and you can happily write rules and put all your if then else conditions, and it works perfectly fine. But when you start looking at unstructured data, and now mind you, when we think of process automation and think of end-to-end automation, you're primarily looking at data which is in your operations. So here you have people in multiple roles, you have multiple functions, and you're looking at data formats in various varieties. So it could come in the form of documents, it could come in from emails, it could come in from chat, it could come in from a mobile. So this data, once it enters your enterprise, when I look at total experience, I'm looking at how easily can I handle this data across the entire operations floor and reconcile and deliver and settle it and archive it or push out an outcome to an end user, whether it is internal or external. Now, if I have to manage all that flow of the data across the operations, then I need to be able to do your workflows and, do a bit of understand and interpret the unstructured data. No longer it's about writing templates or writing rules. At this point is when you really want to bring in some machine learning and AI algorithms. Now, can I send my data outside my enterprise? We heard Amit talk about, all the issues with GDPR and, how you want to federate data. So obviously you have to play with a small data set. You need this data to be available, whatever data is available within your enterprise. And that's how you're going to build out these machine learning models. So that's where we have been focusing as Jiffy. And because we have all these capabilities pre-packaged into a single platform, I think we give out great value to our customers in terms of time to market and having that total experience. And plus it's available on cloud and it is operations anywhere. And if you look at what we have done for a very large low-cost airlines out here in this region, they had to solve this problem of, getting about 5,000 plus invoices done. And the HyperApp story where you saw everything which is configurable, they were up and running like in 8 to 10 weeks in the least. This is from the time of onboarding. Now, again, the other thing that is most important and most people miss out is, I think, the ability to scale, the ability to run parallel jobs, the ability to have that infrastructure. It's not going to be now a lightweight desktop which is going to do this activity, to have the kind of infrastructure that you need. And I think the other important concept, which is very unique to Jiffy, is having your own ML workspace. I'm getting a little technical here, but I mean, for those who are interested, we can bring that in, but you could bring in your own Python scripts and, Jupyter notebooks and things like that. So you could augment your RPA programs to be able to also become intelligent. The moment it becomes intelligent automation, you're getting more through the process and you're getting up to 70 to 80% of automation in your process. And that delivers great outcomes to the customer because then it's almost touchless. So this airline's customer of ours is today doing 98% of the invoice straight through, hardly any touch point with it's almost touchless, if I can say 98%. So these are some of the outcomes that we are driving, and we are owning some of these outcomes, and to be able to deliver them from anywhere and give them costs which are not CapEx, again, Minu touched upon it, but more of an OpEx kind of a model. I think these are some of the value props, and this is how we see will be the future of, where we will take the RPA and then intelligent automation journey, and the hyper automation bit, which is more about the process and building out book of work, building out, having a good amount of processes and scale that you need in your governance that you need in your enterprise to be able to drive these kind of changes, which is also a very important element when you embark on such kind of automation journeys. So I think from a Jiffy perspective, I would say the vision of building out these hyper apps jointly, being able to provide them on the cloud, infusing them with intelligence and machine learning, keeping your data secure, and playing with being able to build these models either pre-packaged. It's not just about OCR. OCR is one aspect. To many of them, AI is equivalent to OCR, which is not what it is. So, and then having the analytics on top of it to be able to play with the data to do your, predictive, prescriptive. So all of these, I think, combined together is what we are driving at Jiffy to be able to provide some of these demands that the business needs today in these times of, of the pandemic and the disruption thereof that it has caused. So I think I will stop here because a lot has been spoken about Jiffy today, and these are my experiences on the field. And I'm glad to say that we are able to cater to some of this, and we're seeing significant, interest as well as action on the ground to be able to transform some of these initiatives with our customers.
Yeah, thank you, Sangeeta. And some of the things which I could repeat is that one very good thing you told, that owning the solution. So that's I think the mantra for Jiffy. And total experience, you said it cannot be a single function. It has to be end to end to understand the complete process and making it very efficient. Then change management you talked about, and then how to build the blocks for machine learning, which is unstructured data to structured, understanding the workflows and understanding the complete process. And example you shared for the airlines, where invoicing is being done automatically to the extent of 98% more, means touchless. And of course, the infrastructure will be the key requirement for many of the industries, be it on their own servers or cloud management or through some other methods. Thank you very much, Sangeeta, for sharing your perspective on this. Thanks a lot. And now I will go to, we have Mr. Sanjeev Ravichandran, who is Director of Automation and Efficiency at Anheuser-Busch. And since it's a food and beverage company, so I would like to understand that how artificial intelligence, how the technology is playing the role for efficiency improvements and customer satisfaction, since it's a very important part of your domain. So how you are taking care through these aspects, through these new technologies or through intelligent automation. So that's my question to you, Mr. Ravi.
Sanjeev Ravindranathan, that would be. So
yeah,
thanks. No, I think the food and beverage industry has been impacted quite significantly, right? And this is one of the industries that's kind of relied heavily on non-digitized contact. In other words, for example, we are a beer, we manufacture beer, and our major point of sales is always people getting into a restaurant, getting into a pub, sharing a drink together, right? And that's what we call the first social media network, basically people catching up in restaurants and drinking. But that all got changed in the COVID scenario, where we had to kind of move away from channels of people coming in physically, buying their drinks in restaurants, because that obviously got restricted, to a channel where we could go direct to the consumer. And for that, I mean, a lot of things had to change, first of all, at the front end, in terms of being able to create B2B, B2C platforms where we could, first of all, go directly to the consumer. He could order his beer on an app, obviously in countries where it isn't restricted to do that. And to kind of really get into that front end mode, we also needed to look at a lot of automations at the back end. And I know you touched upon the point of efficiency, but I think we have learned the hard way, and a lot of companies are learning the hard way, that we've looked at automation with the purpose of driving efficiency. Of course, efficiency is important, but I think if you drive automation with the focus of efficiency, you start failing. And I'll explain why. I think Sangeeta mentioned a few points in that. So let's look at it from an end-to-end perspective, right? And this is what I call the Bangalore flyover effect, where a flyover basically in Bangalore is built to move traffic jams from one spot to another spot. It doesn't really solve the traffic situation end to end, right? And it's the same thing with us. I mean, we've worked with a lot of technology providers who provide us end-to-end digitized solutions with intelligent automation, hyper automation. But what tends to happen is we don't actually solve the problem statement. And the problem statement is basically, how can we solve our processes to make it smooth, not just for our employees, but also for the end consumer. And the end consumer could be the one who actually consumes the beer. It could also be stakeholders or employees within the organization, right? And that's where I think, as much as you try and drive a lot of digital transformation, intelligent automation, what companies need to realize is 70 or 80% of the work still lies within you as an organization to kind of make it effective. In other words, do you have the right kind of policies in place? Do you have the right processes in place that allow automations to kind of work intelligently? Because at the end of the day, as intelligent as the automation may be built or designed at the back end, it's built by humans and it's going to work on a process. So if the process that you have in place, so, I mean, take something as simple as credit limits, right? So do we have policies that allow AI, ML driven decisions? Are we an organization that's ready to have the risk appetite to kind of rely on those models to basically decide what kind of customers do we want to deal with? So all these are really crucial in how we basically kind of maximize the potential with what's out there, because there are fantastic technologies out there. Now, if you take, for example, the GPT-3 technology that's going to kind of be the next big wave, right? Again, if not used wisely or not used properly, they actually become counterintuitive to how an organization operates. Let's take, I mean, something as simple as, I think there was a talk on the predicting attrition, and we have those models in place. But do we want to focus on predicting the next attrition, or do we want to focus on having the right hiring policy, having the right policy for our employees, which then on top of that, you then start saying, okay, I want to now look at predictive models, because in spite of having these things in place, there are things outside of an organization's control which are basically impacting people's attrition. And this is where causation and correlation becomes important, because today people are so data hungry that today you can use data to almost predict what time somebody is going to eat their food or eat their basically dinner or go to sleep, right? But then what happens is, because we are so excited about getting onto this digital bandwagon, we kind of try to consume the data that's available out there. And unfortunately, not every single piece of data is out there. So we then start relying on things like correlation rather than causation. And that's where it's so important to understand the root cause of everything that we're doing, understand the flow of everything that we're doing today, because only in those scenarios do you start using things like AI, ML powered decision making to really be advantageous to your organization. So either you get into a scenario, so if I can just recap what I'm saying, is you need to get into a scenario where you are able to completely transform your process end to end. And I'm not talking about digitization here. I'm talking about getting back to the basics, because that is something that we're really seeing happening a lot in our organization today, which I think is wonderful. We are kind of upsetting the apple cart in the organization of what people are used to be doing for the last 10, 15 years. And we are refusing to automate or digitize processes the way they are. We are forcing our businesses, we are forcing our organization to change the way they operate, and then put automation and digital transformation and analytics on top of those transformed processes, because then you start seeing exponential outcomes that are coming out of it. Number two, I think is what is very critical is, while there is a lot of data consumption, a lot of data out there, it's very important that when you decide to put these models in place, you either have access to all the data or you don't use it. Because having access to partial data tends to make you focus on correlation rather than causation. But having access to all the data, that's really important, the input variables, because with all the models that you want to build in place, if you don't have access to all the data, then you tend to start just correlating certain events with that being the reason why there is a cause and effect over there, right? Whereas that isn't the case. So for me, those are two really important things that we're looking at in terms of driving efficiency. Obviously, as a way, as a means to an end, but not the end. But the end is basically, how can we make life easier for our employees? How can we make life easier for our consumers in terms of buying our products? And that's where I think digital transformation plays a fantastic role, but only once you really start looking at how you can standardize your processes end to end.
Yeah, thank you, Sanjeev, for sharing this. And if I can repeat your words, that Beer, you told that it's a first social media network. That was good. And then you told about the challenges, like now we have to reach to the customers, then customer reaching us. So that can be the second thing for noting down. And then you said that internally the right processes are must for intelligent automation to be very efficient. So we have to understand what are our processes and then build intelligent automation over it, so that we get the right kind of solutions on that. That is the one point we can take from that. And one thing you emphasize, understanding the correlation than causation. That was again and again emphasized by you. So to understand
the reverse.
yeah,
Understanding the causation instead of the correlation.
that's right. So predictive analysis is a need for understanding the customers from outside. That's the need your business or your models have, your company has for this requirements. So thank you, Sanjeev. Thank you very much for this. And I'm going next to Smita now, who is heading data innovation. So data, as we say, is the king now. So I just want to understand from her that why do you think that AI and ML data-driven techniques are not choices, but compulsion for business resiliency? And not only in the COVID situation, but even after that, or competitive scenarios ahead. Over to you, Smita.
Thank you, Pawan. Thanks for this opportunity. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. So the question on, first of all, how AI is not just a choice anymore. If you have been, observing the current trends, artificial intelligence is positioning itself as a more transformative technology of the century. The speed at which, this is helping improving in the business operations, be it manufacturing, healthcare, telecom, aviation, retail, you just name it, right? It leaves the industry with just two options, if you can think a little deeper on that. Either, we need to embrace AI, or the industries just get left behind. And these technologies are already generating value in various products and services, and the companies across sectors use them in wide array of processes that we have heard many speakers speak about it today. Take it with respect to the personalization of product recommendations, finding anomaly in production, identifying fraudulent transactions, and many more that we have already noticed, right? The latest generation of AI advances, including the techniques that, for example, addresses the classification, estimation, and clustering of problems for doing the probably the flight segmentation, customer segmentation, right? The promises are significantly of more and more value as we progress adopting these AI technologies. Looking at a little bit of statistics on this, if you take a little more advanced deep learning techniques and deploying artificial neural networks, it could count as much as 3.5 trillion to 5.8 trillion in annual value as per Forrester, and 40% of value created by all of this is the analytics techniques, right? We can't emphasize the amount of benefits we get in using this technology for good. Some of the key applications, if you walk through, one that really stands out is in the fraud prevention. We'll be finally able to think how the theft is, being directly done by doing some vision technologies using the face of the person, right? A camera can be attached to the system to record all the transactions and link them directly to the face along with the details that's already in the system. And people using fake currencies, committing credit card fraudulent transactions, it's become much easier to catch them, which was not so in the earlier days, right? And intelligence system can also prevent cyber attacks, identifying abnormal behaviors of the people. And in such a situation, the system automatically stops taking any requests and sends alerts directly to the administrators. So these are the advances that we have seen and reaping the benefits of. Take it system health monitoring as a next set of key applications. We can predict cycles to failure based on the prior history of the sensor measurements that we already have, right? And stress on the engines, or any running components that are happening due to multiple variations. Take it an aircraft engine, due to multiple altitudes that they fly in, a lot of stress gets onto the engine. So how can we proactively monitor the health of these engines and increase the customer satisfaction, reduce the downtime, right? And you can capture multiple parameters. One such parameter could be what is the time spent in, say, for example, takeoff. So in takeoff, a lot of stress is created on the engine due to huge amount of heat and aberrations that is generated. So, and then you could do a customer segmentation based on the flying patterns, and you can also study the supplier effectiveness based on the time to deliver, the quality of parts, and comparison between the suppliers. And in the telecom industry, specific to Ericsson, we are very successful in predicting the tower climb requirements. So do the personnel really have to climb the tower to inspect the radio units? Can we be more proactive about the measurements that we are getting in real time, to avoid such delays? So these are very, very widely applied for system health monitoring scenarios, right? And coming to the manufacturing process itself, for anomaly detection in particular, right? We could do the RCA of test failures, which we are rapidly doing within the organization. So we could measure all the test points to identify the patterns of failure, marrying that to a probability. So based on the measurements that we are getting, can we give a weighted probability measurement based on the prior to say, with this kind of a sequence, you can arrive at a pattern to failure. So, even before the failure happens, you're actually capturing based on the pattern that it is exhibiting when compared to, a success, right? So this is a much more intelligent, response mechanism that we can create. And another intelligent recommendation that we could offer is, response to an RFP, right? Request for proposal. So to the bid office, there are multiple proposals that we have already answered, which is very similar to the one which we see today. So do we need to invest the same amount of people in generating the proposals? And another way to think of is how are we taking care of standardization? So, there could be repeated questions that we see in the proposals, which comes in long span of time. And are we addressing it in a more standard way that also reflects on the customer satisfaction? And you could save a lot of time if you have an AI system who could actually recommend based on what has happened in prior, right? So the human resource management is spoken enough. The recruiters often struggle through sorting the CVs, identifying the potential candidates, and managing old data. And with automation, this work can be entirely automated, built-in intelligence with respect to multiple NERs that we can do, and huge amount of NLP techniques. So there is no dearth of techniques that we have today to actually encash the potential from the human resource management that we have. And it's been more like a tried and tested philosophy, I would say. So coming back to the question, why do we want to choose an intelligent automation? There is no, one reason to choose it. One is definitely to reduce cost, improve efficiency. Improve efficiency by this, what I mean is, an automated solution is much more foolproof when compared to, the people working, no matter how efficient the people are, and it leaves little to no errors. And with time, it also learns the, the outcomes or outputs, and hence it also improves efficiency with time without much intervention of humans, right? And it could introduce new human roles itself in the industry. Just like computers that brought a whole new type of jobs, so will artificial intelligence bring, right? So people with exceptional skills will find themselves training low-level automation systems to do most of their work. So what is the takeaway? We have to get upskilled, right? Learning and unlearning, the disruption that the economy is creating today, learning and unlearning is becoming more and more important, and emphasizing on the new roles. So in the crux of it, if you ask, for businesses, this brings in a faster, more personalized execution and processes, greater use and accuracy in data, improvements in overall customer experience. And what are the benefits of this? The marketers and the business folks, they shift from fussing over bid adjustments, bid allocations, into much more value added services, which are so much human centric. So your contributions can much more focus towards how do we evolve our value value proposition to drive more and more business, rather than how do I do this more quickly, how do I bring in more efficiency, how do I reduce cost, which can all be taken care by the intelligent AI systems, wherein we could much more focus on what humans could do that machines could not, adding in more emotions, understanding the customers better. So all of these could be the merits of AI. And I mean, we cannot stop talking about the merits of AI, especially in the pandemic era as well, wherein it's bringing a lot of great perspectives which we had not seen earlier, even during the pandemic, where it is opening up a lot of avenues for people to think better through the AI ML systems. This is becoming more like, in the medical terms, when we see taking a second opinion of the doctor. So AI has almost become like a second opinion in any of the business industry that we see. So it doesn't replace what we are doing, but it augments what we are doing. So this is my perspective on, why should someone adopt AI and not be left behind in this competitive world.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And well said that embrace AI or being left behind. So that's the only choice we have. And you explained a lot of applications related to data-driven technologies. And few of those were fraud prevention, system health monitoring, or supply rating, safety, then anomaly detection or human-related NLP or decision-making related to recruitment. So thank you very much for your perspective. And you also shared that a lot of investment is going on into ANN, around 8 trillion. So thank you very much for that information to all of us. And now I'm going to Mr. Sudeep, and who is heading robotics and intelligent automation at Schlumberger. And I just want to understand from him what are the right criterias for selecting the right kind of RPA or artificial intelligence for any enterprise intelligent automation journey. So any company who is starting this journey or halfway, midway. So what should be the right criterias for this? That's my question to Mr. Sudeep. Mr. Sudeep, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Pawan. Hi all, I'm Sudeep Srivastav. I head the robotics intelligent automation along with other digital technologies in Schlumberger. I don't know how many of you know Schlumberger, by the way. Schlumberger is leading oil and gas services company with around 85,000 people in 120 countries. So what we primarily do is we take out oil. That's, in a simple language, that's exactly what we do. So the oil is there underlying the earth, underlying the oceans, and we basically are experts in drilling it out. So all the big oil companies that you can think of, Schlumberger is helping them take out those oils. So that's the work. Now, COVID impact, huge impact, because we are an oil and gas company. And if everyone is sitting home, no one is consuming the oil. If there's no flights flying, no cars moving, so that's a big impact, right? So overall, as an industry, very, very big impact, but again, today, I don't think automation is a choice. I think we started hearing about automation really 10, 15 years ago around automation. And that's when we started hearing what's going to come and all. But again, today, it is reaching to a commodity level where I think like Sangeeta as well as, Smith has mentioned that it's not a choice. You have to do it, right? Sooner or later, or you are left behind. That's the only option that we are left with. So what I'm going to share today more is how we have implemented robotic and intelligent automation in Schlumberger, plus what our vision is and what kind of challenges we are facing, so that you can correlate. Because I think a lot of speakers have covered around the benefits out of automation and how automation is impacting in various areas. So I think that is given. So what we'll probably talk about a little bit around how do you get started. And that's the criteria Mr. Pawan was talking about. So I think there is only one criteria to embark on an automation journey. It has to be return on investment. There is no other criteria. We are all running business. Here, no one is here for charity. Everyone is going to look into what is the return that we are getting out of the investment. Now, automation calls for a very, very significant investment. It's not something that you can do it on the sides and try. You have to really be committed into it. And one thing we have realized as a central automation team in Schlumberger is if the leadership is not pushing it, it's not happening. Okay. So the first criteria is to bring in the intent from the leadership to ensure that the leadership buy-in is completely there to have the automation pushed there. And that will only happen when you show as one of the leaders in the company or one of the managers who wants to lead automation, you show how the investment is going to be returned in the interest that they get out of that. So that's there. Now the second problem is, second criteria, and I'm not even getting into process and data. I think those are really, really end thing, which can be really handled. It's all the people behavior that is going to be our biggest challenges in the automation implementation. So your second criteria is going to be around people's acceptance, because the way automation is going to be pitched around overall, and if you will read a lot of articles, you will listen to speakers, automation is going to replace a lot of things. Automation is going to replace the jobs. You may not have the jobs you are doing today. Now that's a scary situation. Why would I support you if I am not going to have my job? I will not support you. That's very simple, right? So what you really want is leadership supports and the people support what you're looking to automate. And hence, you have to change your conversation from, how automation is going to change everything and replace everything, how automation is going to help those people themselves, help remove their laborious work, the manual work that they are doing, and give them enough time to do more knowledge-based work, more knowledgeable work. When the competition is removed with human and bot, people are more adaptive to it. They will provide their support. So now you have leadership support. Now you have people support by changing the conversation with them. Now you talk about the governance framework, how you leverage your whole governance framework. So I think even though, I think Sangeeta mentioned about, how we are transitioning from RPA to intelligent automation, definitely artificial intelligence, machine learning, IoT, edge computing, this is there today, right? But even one company, when they are looking to embark, I think their low-hanging fruit is around robotic process automation even today, right? Where you can automate a lot of stuff which is manual across the organization. Let's talk about every function that runs, and Smita touched upon HR, right? We talk about end-to-end automation, which Sanjeev was talking about. So it has to be an end-to-end automation. You cannot run automation in patches. It will not work for you. It will give you very incremental benefit. If you want transformational benefit, you have to do end-to-end automation, right? And every function today, every people I speak to, finance is the highest, beneficiary from the automation processes, because their work needs accuracy. They want to make sure it is done throughout the time. There are month-end issues, a lot of backlog, people stressed out, they make errors, and then finance processes are really, really big volume. So finance is your biggest and softest area that you can touch upon. Now, how do you leverage based on there? The intelligent automation is coming to play around, like we spoke about invoicing. Now, invoicing is a simple RPA process. But now the problem changes when your invoices changes from multiple people saying, you are working with different suppliers, and when suppliers send you invoices, everyone's format is different. You need to bring your intelligent automation machine learning there to be able to capture the data, image processing, and recognize the data irrespective of the format. I'm talking about very, very low hanging fruits. I don't want to go into, really high-tech technology at this point of time. So those are your key areas that you want to focus on and get it automated, huge gains. And I can give you an example of what we did. In one of our finance processes, Schlumberger being such a massive company, we outsource a lot of our work, right? And in one of the automation that we did in 6 months' time, we were able to replace 40 people headcount from our contracting partner and bring everything in-house with the automation. That is massive. Now that ROI, if you show to the leadership, they will be right behind you supporting this whole transformation journey. So those are the elements that you can talk about. Supply chain is a big element, vendor management office, and HR. Basically, you can do it anywhere. I think that's the key play, right? Then let's talk about a little bit of IoT, machine learning, and how it is changing game for us. I think now, because we are using smart devices everywhere, everything is happening on your mobile, everything is passing the data, like a lot of speakers spoke about, right? It's important to make your things, IoT is Internet of Things, right? So you have to make your things intelligent so that it passes you the data. Things are nothing but the machines that operates and in the operations that it touch upon, right? So the data that you're consuming in, it needs to help make your processes better. For example, one of our effort in Schlumberger is, because you can imagine if I am taking oil out, how much manual driven, people driven operation it is. Big time people driven, remote operations, in the mid of the oceans, in deserts, everywhere. Can we completely operate the whole thing remotely just by getting the data through intelligent automation, through edge computing? That's the vision we are moving toward. We have done POC around Rig of the Futures and stuff, and it is definitely doable. Far from having 0 people, but reducing manual effort and people at the remote operations big time. That is a huge gain. So that's one. And then in a lot of operations, we have something called drill bit. Now, drill bit is something that drills your land, and the drills, when it goes to kilometers, and there is a wear and tear. So now you have to take out the drill and see wear and tear. You send it to for checking and repair and everything. But do you even know it is ready to go to repair or not? So all we have built around is a simple mobile app. You capture an image of it, capture a video of it. It shows you if the drill bit in 6 seconds. This whole process manually used to take 2 days or 3 days time. In 6 seconds, it shows you if drill bit is required to be sent for repairing or not. I think those are the transformation that happens with the Industry 4.0. Okay. Now, where we are leading towards with this journey, I am a strong believer of this vision that I keep talking about. I've spoken about this to multiple people, multiple companies like Automation Anywhere, KPMG, Microsoft, and Deloitte, and other people. Okay, on those, basically, technology is the challenge there right now. The vision is that we want to enable every individual with a bot. So you can talk about a bot for each individual, right? Now, let's just do the math of the power of this kind of vision. If we say, if I can help people create their own bot, okay, the problem with this is every company has a center of excellence team. A handful of people cannot, change the enterprise of 85,000 we are, right? So what we will do is we will empower the people themselves to build their own bot. And let's assume if they can save 30 minutes of their time, right? That's it, 30 minutes of your time by building your own bot. And if we train 20,000 people, not even 85,000, if we train 20,000 people in the company, and let's say only 25% do it, we are still talking about 5,000 people building a small bot, saving 30 minutes of their time. Now multiply that 30 minutes with 5,000, we are talking about 2,500 hours of saving just like that. And that kind of productivity gain for any company is massive. That cannot happen even with the 40 people saving I spoke about. It is much massive than that if we are able to pull that off, right? So that's the vision we have. Now the challenges that we face is today our technology is not mature enough to provide us a governance structure around it. For example, we are building bot at a scale. Let's assume we have 5,000 bot built, which is very easy. You know, I can say with my experience today itself, building 5,000 to 10,000 bot is just like that, right? But it consumes resources. It consumes some licenses cost. It consumes your Azure cloud cost. It consumes resources. And how do we ensure that 10,000 bots are creating value or the ROI that we spoke about? Because automation runs in the background. We as a group cannot, really go and look into every single bot and say, is this creating ROI? Is this not creating ROI? Today, we don't have any technology. I can, you just name any technology, I can, bring that in, and it doesn't give you that kind of governance. All it will tell you is which bot ran successfully or did not run successfully. It is not telling me if this bot, which was created 1 year ago, is it still creating a value? So those are some elements that is very, very difficult in governance. But if we are able to nail that down, I think this is extremely powerful vision where we are moving toward to scale this. So thank you for that. If there are any questions, we'll be happy to answer at the end of this. Over to you, Mr. Pawan.
Thank you. And Sudeep told us about the criteria for setting up the RPA, and one of the largest criteria, which is return of investment, of course, and leadership push. He talked about top-down approach. Then he said people's acceptance for change management is also very necessary. Then he talked about the governance framework, and he also talked about the RPA, which is for low-hanging fruits, gaining that. And he talked on many examples like invoice processing, then remote operations, drill operations. So how they have reduced the time for checking the drills. And he said that challenges are there for implementing the infrastructure requirement or backend requirements and how to justify them with the ROI. So that's what he talked. Thank you very much, Sudeep.
Thank you, Mr.
Yeah. So we have short time left. So I will ask Vartul to come in, and he's heading his operations and technology consulting and a digital transformation leader. And I would like him to share his perspective on what are the difficult points for digital transformation for any industry, and why the speed cannot be accelerated. Some of the points Sudeep also touched, why the speed cannot be accelerated because of the ROI reasons and all that, but you can share your perspective as well. Yeah, and why every business will need to transform itself to digital. Smita also talked about this. Please share your perspective on this.
Thank you, Pawan. Thank you, Pawan, for the question. I'll not take much time. I think we have already overstretched. I'll take 5 minutes. So when from my perspective, why digital transformation has not been able to speed up in most of the cases, there are 5 reasons to it. First reason would be the advisory phase is not present. And so there is no robust governance model to drive ownership and accountability. And there is incorrect selection of candidate processes for automation. So overall, the strategy, the business goals on ROI go bad if there is no proper advisory phase. Second is the right prioritization of processes. Absence of data about the processes in scope, lack of the method to madness for creating the inventory, identification, selection, and prioritization of automation projects is a must for any digital transformation journey. Third is treating automation projects as IT projects, which is not the right thing. Long-term implementation plans and heavy change management and involvement of IT is required, but not keeping business owners in the loop while taking important decisions about use cases selection is not the right thing. So it is not an IT project. It's a complete power of one kind of a project where we need to keep business also in loop since beginning. Fourth would be the improper automation project requirements. So there's at times I have seen there's a mismatch between tests and UAT and development environment, which cause bots to fail. And there will be a huge component of failure in terms of surface automation, where we see that any unavailability of test data covering all scenarios, all use cases in a process will lead to a higher percentage of fallouts by bots. And fifth point, why digital transformation do not scale up is the no planning for scalability in itself. Because there are instances where failing to recognize IT's role in helping building a scalable, resilient, and secure infrastructure to support long-term automation needs is missing since beginning. Most of the leaders miss out on testing the enterprise grade level parameters when selecting the RPA products for deployment. Third, the absence of a structured support organization catering to the entire business unit's automation requirements is missing. So that is another point of failure, where we see that why we do not see most of the projects coming up in a very fine way. And second part to your question, Pawan, to answer it, that why we see that why every business will need to transform itself to digital. Okay, so there are two key reasons for that. One is the operations management and control, where we see that any workflow or task automation, any productivity analytics, any remote monitoring during now the current COVID times, and any wellness or breach management. This cannot be done unless we move from physical to digital. Secondly, the knowledge management part, where all the documents management in a remote scenario, the rules configuration, the chatbots requirement for service desk and help desk, or any knowledge base and secure cloud enablement. This cannot be done unless we move from physical to digital. So during COVID or pre-COVID or post-COVID, there is a huge requirement where people were already aware about automation, but we have seen a significant adoption of automation or hyper automation over last 6 to 8 months. So I have my own submission that with the platforms like Jiffy coming up with much more broader set of automation suite, I see much more demand and a faster pace of adoption in the entire digital transformation era. I hang up now. So I'm good. Pawan, back to you. So go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much, Vartul. So just to summarize, lack of governance model, lack of advisory, lack of prioritization of projects, and lack of data availability in some cases, and absence of a long-term vision. So these are the main reasons for fallout of some digital transformations. Thank you very much, Vartul, for your experience sharing. And now, Ekta, back to you. So for taking any Q&A, if there.
Yeah, thank you all the panelists. Thank you, Pawan sir, for moderating the panel so well. So guys, we can take some questions on the floor. I know we are running not running on time, but still, since it was an interesting panel. Okay, quickly, we have a Kushal raising hand. Kushal, can you please introduce yourself and put your question to the panel?
Hi, my name is Kushal Raval, and I am from PCView SCADA, France. I have a question for Meenu and one more of the panelists from the cement industry whom I could not get his name. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are.
Yes, yes.
Hi. So, well, we did see two aspects here. One was the business process automation and the other one was manufacturing process automation. Since I run with the manufacturing processes, I would like to ask Meenu about how is the adaptability of AI and ML in the process industry seen? I know that from years, there had been technologies like Foundation Fieldbus and Profibus PA, but the adaptability had been extremely slow because of the main reason of ROI. A quicker ROI is seen by the Indian industry as such, again, I'm just looking at the Indian industry. So what do you feel is, the ML and AI, how do you think they will be adopted? Because all I see so far is just POCs happening, but there's no real adaptability. Though the Schlumberger did say that they do adopt, AI for looking at the drill quality. So, well, that's my question, Meenu.
Yeah, so thanks for this question. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is very right. The adaptability of AI and ML in the industries has started gradually with a slow pace. And we see that with the change scenarios now, MSMEs have come forward and they are now getting into a larger scale of adapting AI and ML because they have, with the POCs, as you rightly said, which have been done, people have understood that the initial investments are not as high as what they were perceiving. There are a lot of perceptions and building of the trust, which is required, which is now getting built up. And as they come and see more and more benefits to the industries happening, especially in life sciences, food and beverages, these are two segments where AI and ML have already started gaining good momentum. When we look at the core industries, which is in the metal, mining, cement, it is getting in piecemeal basis because yes, the plants which are aged, there is perception of people from where to start. And we always say start from where you are and you can implement AI and ML even in a small section of the plant and yielding benefit out of it. So the pace at which they are growing is exponential in terms of percentages. I can say 40 to 50% growth has come in the process automation, which is AI and ML based, as compared to a single digit what it was a couple of years back. If that answers your question.
Yes, very much, Meenu. Thank you.
Yeah, Kushal, I just want to add something into it. I am from cement manufacturing process industry. So recently we have taken up two projects. One is on the data analytics. So, and second one is on TPP efficiency improvement. So it is all about finding out the right applications, and it is about how your business KPI will be hit. So if the person, employee, who can understand that this is the right application for implementing the AI ML, and if the suppliers who are the technology providers who can understand that these are the right kind of technologies to be implemented at the plant premises, then it can be the best match and acceleration can take place.
True, very true. A typical application, yes. But overall, cutting across the industry, I think automating everything with AI probably would not be right. But yes, great thought. I think Pawan, that's a great input.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, do we have any more questions? I think Sonder, if you are still there, you had a question which you have raised. Sonder, do you want to take that question up? I think we'll wait for a while. Maybe some people might ask. We'll just wait for a while, yeah, for the people to raise question.
Sure, Ekta.
Yes. Sonder, if I'm audible to you, you had a question, if I'm not wrong, and when we started the webinar. So if you want to ask your questions, you can do that right away. Okay, I think we don't have questions anymore. Okay.
Good.
Okay, I think all the questions have been answered nicely, and the presentations were quite clear. The panel was great. Everybody contributing from their industry's perspective. So thank you all speakers. Thank you all the panel speakers and Pawan sir for moderating it so well. So coming to the concluding part of the webinar, we have all understood like how automation and artificial intelligence are driving business success today, and how they are being effectively deployed in various business functions in various sectors also. We have heard the speakers, we have heard the industry starlets sharing their experts on the insights on this. Now, before we end, I would just like to tell you that we are sharing the feedback form with all the attendees, in which it's also mentioned about one-on-one brainstorm virtual meet with our partner, Jiffy.ai. So there seem to be a lot of people who have shown their interest to us, in having a one-to-one virtual meet with them. So when you receive the feedback form, I would just request you to please fill in that section also, mentioning your interest there. And we can take it forward from there as well with Jiffy.ai. So now I would like to thank our partner Jiffy.ai and all the thought leaders, panel moderator, for taking out your precious time on Saturday morning and being with us, being here with us. Not missing our lovely audience and engaging audience. Again, you guys took your precious time and came here and made this webinar a good success. And we shall be updating the video link shortly on the website. And also my team would be sharing the feedback form, which will also mention about the Brainstorm virtual meet with Jiffy.ai. So you can fill that form, share your feedbacks. That would really help us to improve with each webinar which we do. Also follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, FB, and Twitter for the updates and the events that we are coming up. So lastly, thank you all. Have a nice weekend and please stay safe.
Thank you. Thank you, Ekta. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Nice knowing everybody. Yeah.
Hello. हम लोग ही है ना गाइस, अनम्यूट कर दो. तरन नहीं है, तरन वीडियोस ऑन कर लो. ऑटोमेशन का इवेंट और इतना टेक्निकल ग्लिच स्पीकर्स ने किया. ठीक है. बाकी जानवी, स्पेशल एडवाइस टू यू.
क्या?